Welcome back to day 2. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. See, the coffee kicks in. I am Kevin Barron. I'm your moderator for this session with our 3 distinguished defense ministers. I'm the executive editor of Defense One. We're a news website out of Washington, D.C. I'm a Pentagon reporter by trade for many years, and this is my second GLOBSEC event, so I'm grateful to be back. Thank you for having me. This session, without further ado, we'll give introductions after we get our members up here. We have the Slovak Republic Defense Minister Jaroslav, Bulgaria's Dragomir, Zakov, and joining us online from Ukraine, Oleksii Reznikov.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Minister Reznikov. If I could briefly just set up the panel for everybody and begin our remarks. Day 100, that's the phrase I'm seeing in the news this morning. There's a lot of media that are reassessing where we are in the war, where the conflict is, where Western support is, and frankly, no longer is. Ukraine fatigue is in the headlines today. We heard yesterday from President Zelensky here and also in another speech later in the day. He said Russian forces now occupy 1/5 of his country's territory, according to the New York Times, and that Russia now controls Ukrainian territory that is greater than the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg combined. The front is more than 1,000 kilometers long. Imagine that. And the same pages today, we've seen articles from and columns in the FT. Ed Luce, FT's correspondent in Washington, has a piece up. The title of the piece is "The West is Starting to Feel Ukraine Fatigue." He says America's public, back where I'm from, is focused on rising inflation, school massacres, and the familiar diet of celebrity scandals. On Axios today, there's a graphic that indicates social media interactions have dropped from 100 million likes, comments, and shares, news articles about the Ukraine conflict in the beginning of the war, the first week, to just 4.8 million today. That's the status of things in the media atmosphere. Minister Reznikov, if you could start us off with a battlefield report and remarks from Ukraine. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, can you hear me?
We hear you loud and clear.
Hello, everybody, dear attendants, especially Jaroslav and Dragomir. I'm glad to see you. It's a good habit to see you online, and I hope we will see in the middle of June, I hope personally, in Europe. So, dear colleagues, I want to start my speech by thanking the forum's host, the Slovak nation and the GLOBSEC community for support of Ukraine during this war. Before getting to the topic, I want to inform you about the current situation on the front briefly. It is essential to understand better why Ukraine needs military support. Now, Russia is trying to seize the south and east of Ukraine. Nevertheless, it has not abandoned its goal of capturing Kyiv and crushing Ukrainian statehood. The last weeks saw very heavy fighting in Luhansk and Donetsk regions. The enemy is sending colossal forces to seize Severodonetsk and Lysychansk towns and gain control of the entire Luhansk Oblast. Critically, the Russian army outguns us in long-range artillery. It also has more armored vehicles and uses aviation and missile strikes outside Ukraine's borders. Russia has an unlimited supply of Soviet-era ammunition. They are destroying our cities to the ground. Having stalled the Russian attack, our army is forced to retreat from the towns where no single wall is left standing after the Russian bombing. At the same time, the Kremlin is trying to move the war into a protracted phase. The situation in the temporarily occupied part of Ukraine's southern regions, primarily in Kherson Oblast, is proof of that. Instead of advancing, the Russian army is constructing layered defenses. Therefore, our one goal now is to break the Russian scenario. We need to liberate our land as soon as possible. To do that, we need heavy weapons, primarily MLRS. We also need artillery, tanks, aviation, anti-ship complexes, UAVs, anti-aircraft and anti-missile defense systems. We need them fast. We need them in the numbers matching the scope of the challenge we face. Ukraine entered the war without adequate support from the free world. The situation is changing now, and although slowly. We have received assistance from many countries. Taking my chance, I want to thank my colleagues, Defense Minister Jaroslav and Dragomir Zakov, for the support the peoples and governments of the Slovak Republic and the Republic of Bulgaria provided to Ukraine. Thank you, ministers, again. We value the contribution of every nation that stood with Ukraine. We are committed to taking every necessary step to maximize the efficiency of international assistance. I want to elaborate. The recent meeting in the Ramstein format emphasized the three key words: timing, transition, and coordination. In essence, any important decision to help Ukraine involves cooperation between several countries to deliver NATO standard weapons. I call on every member of the foreign delegations to consider whether peacetime procedures should apply fully during wars. Deliberations take days and weeks, literally measured in Ukrainian lives. Whenever it's up to you, I would like to ask you to adopt the relevant resolutions or to draw your government's attention to this problem. There have been multiple cases when my colleagues, defense ministers, supported an initiative. Still, they needed to coordinate with their finance ministry or some other institution, which often slowed the process down substantially. We need simplified and expedited procedures. We propose jointly analyzing every help format from our partners and splitting them into the three baskets: short-term, medium-term, and long-term. Then we should consider them not just from the quantitative, but also from the qualitative perspective, how they increase the capabilities of the armed forces of Ukraine at any given moment. We also ask you to consider the harmonization of assistance programs. The ideal goal is to obtain weapons and military equipment not just as a platforms or tubes, but as an organic unit. We have shifted our arms supply philosophy in a course of war. We concentrated on receiving anti-tank and anti-aircraft portable systems during this first month of the war. Now, the character of the war changed, and we need more heavy weapons. The stocks of Soviet-era weapons and ammo are almost depleted. Thus, we need weapons, ammunition, and military equipment of the NATO standard to replace the Soviet ones. To reach maximum effectiveness on the battlefield, we pay much attention to the preparation and training of the personnel. Our philosophy is to train personnel to use the weapon systems before they actually deliver, and to prepare specialists for the maintenance and repair of such systems. It is essential to provide spare parts and materials to repair armaments to ensure sustainability. This involves developing our defense industry capabilities to provide maintenance and repair cycles in the long-term perspective. It would substantially increase their efficiency in the field of combat. It would also increase our arms interoperability on the technical and the organizational level. NATO's role in this process is hard to overestimate. It would foster Ukraine's to de facto integration with the NATO. Finally, I want to thank my colleagues and all defense ministers and countries that support Ukraine. This list of these countries is growing. It means that we are on the right path. Thank you, and Slava Ukraini.
Minister Reznikov, thank you for those remarks. I have one follow-up question for you before I bring in the other ministers. You mentioned in your wish list of arms at the very top, MLRS. The United States pledged HIMARS just this week, and I noticed that you tweeted that those are the 6 letters for which the whole country has been waiting, HIMARS. What can you tell us? Have you received them yet? If not, when do you expect them?
No, on this moment, we're starting training courses in Europe with our artillery cruisers. They're starting these training courses, and they will be prepared with using these HIMARS. And also, I can add it that you know that our colleague, Secretary of Defense Ben Wallace, also announced that we will get M20 170 MLRS systems also as well, and our artillery crews also starting their training courses, and they will come back with these systems also again. And I think it was made well. It's a first step. Maybe you remember the very famous American astronaut. You know him. His family name sounds like Armstrong.
Neil Armstrong, yes.
That's something like it was just one first step on the moon for one man. It means it's a big step for whole mankind. Approximately was this quote.
It's close enough.
I think the decision of White House with the HIMARS and London with the MLRS M270, it's a first step for Ukraine, but it's a really big jump for mankind to deter Russian aggressor.
Well, so we've heard the plea for what Ukraine is asking for, and most importantly, it was a plea for speed. Ministers Nod and Zakov, what are your countries giving all they can as fast as they can?
Well, thank you, and Oleksii, good to see you and good to hear from you, and looking forward to our further communication today later, I think in the afternoon. And this is another example that we really do communicate very often, and all the military aid that Slovakia provides is simply tailor-made to expectation and needs of Ukraine. And not only in terms of concrete capability, but also in terms of timing. If you remember S-300 system, I mean, from the moment of agreement between Ukraine, Slovakia, and the United States on the whole process, it took a week to get the system to Ukraine, which consisted of several trains and several dozens of cars or vehicles. So it wasn't something small. We are helping, as much as we can. I would love to see more countries like Bulgaria and Slovakia, who, and obviously Poland and others, but we're here today, who really help not only in terms of substance and concrete equipment, but also timely. Timing is extremely important. And sometimes I have a feeling that we discuss more than we should, and we should be a little faster in order to help Ukraine to defend their territory. But if you ask me as a Slovak defense minister, I can tell you that we have only sent to Ukraine things that they needed, and I think very timely. And I can say that total amount as of today that Slovakia provided from our storage. So it was our equipment that we had in our storage in the defense in Slovakia is worth of 154, I think, million euros. In book prices, prices from 80s and 90s maybe. So currently on market price, it will be maybe with 1 0 more. This is another example that we are really doing our best in order to help Ukraine because they need it, because they're fighting for our freedom. They're fighting for freedom of whole Europe. And, I only can pay tribute to Oleksii and his people and the armed forces of Ukraine for excellent work they're doing.
Minister Zakov, I spoke with your Prime Minister here yesterday and explained some of the differences in your country's popular opinion for the war, for Russia, which informs and helps shape the policies and aid you're able to give. Explain the state of where that opinion is and how it's affecting what Bulgaria is able or willing to give to the fight.
Yeah, this is indeed a big challenge for our societies, and this is not only in Bulgaria, I guess. So we have this quite big hybrid campaign, hybrid warfare that we have been facing for years, actually, in the east of Europe, not only in Bulgaria but also in Bulgaria, of course. And now we actually have to cope with all this hybrid warfare. And I'm not that much focused on when, how, if what we are providing. Because at the end of the day, I think the most important is how we coordinate with each other, how we complement each other within the international community, within NATO, within the European Union, to help Ukraine, to help our friends. And hello, Oleksii, good to see you already in the screen, but I hope to see you also next week in a different place in life already. But yes, this complementarity is very important because we have different capacities, we have different public opinions, we have different capacities, but at the end of the day, this is the complementarity, the coordination, the unity within NATO and the European Union that help us actually cope with this challenge and help our Ukrainian friends. And if we can try to keep this unity for a long time to be sustainable, I think we will succeed together with Ukraine, and I have no doubt that it will be the case.
I want to remind the audience, if you want a question to get in, you have two ways to do it. You can raise your hand for me soon, or you can go to the Slido app. Some of you have already done that. Get those in. We'll put them up. You can vote which question you'd like to ask more than the others. So stay tuned. We're going to get to that quickly. Minister Reznikov, can you give us a sense of the current status? The city of Severodonetsk, if I'm pronouncing that right, the last major city of Luhansk, which the media is focusing on as almost a symbolic. If that falls, that's the last stronghold keeping Russia from controlling the entire Donbas. What's the status? Can the city hold, or are you already looking past this?
On this moment, Ukrainian Armed Forces and other part of sector of security are in Severodonetsk, and we have enemies in the streets. So I would like to call it urban fights on this moment. And we still control the part of this city. And during this night, we conducted a little bit success. As I get the report from our staff in the east of Ukraine. And I think that tomorrow we will have more information about the attrition. And by the way, I'm glad to announce that we signed a contract for the supply of eight Susanna Hofizers 2 days ago, with, as Jaroslav also tweeted, and it's publicly. And we are grateful to Slovakia for this decision, but it's also a serious investment in the Slovak economy also as well. And it is also a lot of money during the war for Ukraine, so we will ask Slovakia to provide additional systems faster than production capacity. I'm using the moment.
I'd like to ask all of you a similar theme that I asked of the prime ministers yesterday, which is the idea that the arms that the West is providing, there's two different versions of arms that could be given. One version is the types of arms that Ukraine needs to win, to outright win, to drive Russian forces out of Ukrainian territory for good, and to hold them out, to deter them. That's a different level of arms that is required than just providing arms that will help Ukraine have the strongest possible seat at a negotiating table with Russia in the future, which is the language that we're hearing from Western leaders, from the United States, from Britain, from France. That's much different than the language I'm hearing here at GLOBSEC and in Central and Eastern Europe. Are you being provided enough arms for that win to actually drive Russia out of the country? Or is it something short of that, just enough to get to a negotiating table that will lead to some peace sooner?
Just for clarification, this question for me?
Yes, you can answer first, and all of you I'd ask to answer, yes.
Okay, so I think that this level of delivering we have to support Ukraine to deter aggressor. We need more to make sufficient counterattack and kick them outside of our country to liberate all occupied territories. And third stage will be rise up our capacity. Then we will sit on a table for negotiations, and we will discuss next future neighborhood with the Russians. And I'm sure that NATO countries are trying to strengthen their east flank, using their capacity in Poland, Slovak, Czech, Romania, Bulgaria, etc. And I think that during the NATO summit in Madrid, it will be on June, they will adopt a strategy for next 10 years. for NATO, I mean. And I think that if we are talking about the membership of Ukraine with NATO de facto, not de jure, it could be the good idea if in this strategy Ukraine will be also a part of this strategy, because we also are the part of eastern flank of Europe, eastern flank of NATO countries, eastern flank of EU. And I think it will be win-win situation for all countries who are members of Ally, who are members of EU, because unfortunately, Kremlin will not fly to the space using the Elon Musk equipment.
You can't have any panel without Elon Musk being referenced. Minister Nod, do you have the same sense of do you have any sense of concern about what we're saying here, that the arms being provided by the West are perhaps good enough to hold the line, but not to push Russia out, not to, as the minister was saying, become a deterrent force that could join NATO in the same strength as other NATO members of the eastern flank?
Well, the most important thing is obviously to help Ukraine to defend. And in these terms, it's first up to Oleksii and his people to say what exactly they need. We know that they need artillery, that they need anti-tank, they need missiles for farther distance. You know, we're working on that. And obviously, if you would ask me, let's say 2 or 3 months ago, that what I think of how active countries around the world, and we're talking about really dozens of countries that help militarily and financially. If you would ask me whether I would be that optimistic about the amount, I wouldn't be. But I am now, because I see that countries really help and help intensively. Obviously, Oleksii has mentioned Zuzana howitzers that we have actually signed a contract for. And this is exactly the type of equipment that they need, because it's a modern way of fighting. You defend, but you also can attack. And you can shoot, and then you can move very fastly. And this is exactly what they need to do, because in terms of numbers, obviously, Russians have bigger numbers of soldiers deployed, equipment ready, almost never-ending storages of so-called stupid bombs that they have from very deep past. And they are using that really intensively currently in Ukraine. But the storages that we have in the eastern flank, I mean countries that used to be a part of former Warsaw Pact, are emptying from day to day. And now it's up to the countries from the western side of the alliance, of European Union, to provide more modern weapons that they still have. Or, if they cannot do it directly to Ukraine, or they don't want to, then there is this backfilling option. So we can use our storages up to 0 immediately when we receive backfilling from countries that are willing to help EU and NATO, but are not willing to engage directly in Ukraine. Countries like Switzerland, for example, if I can mention at least one of that, and other countries. So obviously, we are here, the whole Western community, we're here to help Ukraine, but it should be faster. And it should be really a strong engagement of countries. And even those who don't want to be directly visible in Ukraine, they can help us, so we can help more Ukrainians.
Well, let's talk about the coordination. And Minister Zakov, if you could maybe speak to this as a country that's providing other than arms types of assistance. One of our questions on Slido from the audience is, are military capabilities between European countries being coordinated differently now than they were previously? How have things evolved for the better, and what else is needed to increase that coordination to get that speed that we're calling for today?
Yes, let me say that I think the war in Ukraine now is actually a war of technology and the war of innovation. And it's clear that I think the trigger point in this war will be when Ukraine acquires the necessary level of technology and the necessary level of innovation and connectivity that actually goes beyond the capabilities of Russia. And I think that both in the European Union and NATO, we have to address this in our strategies. And also, this should be also addressed in the next NATO strategic concept as well. So I think in the decades to come, the competition and the conflicts will actually be solved or decided on the basis of the technology and innovation. So I think this war actually shows clearly that 21st century technology can win over the 20th century, and this is decisive now. So this is not about number or quantity, so quality of weapons. This is about quantity now.
It's a good call for a reminder about technology and innovation. I want to get to that and cyber capabilities soon, but I want to get a response from Minister Reznikov to the same question. Explain how is the coordination improved, and where do you need it to go in the future for better coordination? Or is it great? Coordination's doing wonderfully.
I would think that the initiative of our colleague Lloyd Austin, Secretary of Defense of the United States, and Ben Wallace to starting the idea with the donation conference in London, and after that the Rammstein format, it's a good idea to arrange this coordination center to help us. And it's still working, and we will have third meeting in June, and we continue our cooperation on bilateral platform also, like we do it with Jaroslav and Dragomir as an example. And I think that this coordination system will help us to conduct the sustainability that we will definitely need also in the future, like new aircrafts, rocket systems, cyber systems, cyber security systems, and etc. So also next step will be demining program in Ukraine, humanitarian demining program, because we have a lot of explosive things in our lands. So I think this story for long period of time.
Good. Let's turn to the audience and get things started. I have a question right here, and thank you very much. Stand up, introduce yourself, please.
Melinda Herring from the Atlantic Council in Washington. Defense Minister Reznikov, two questions for you. How much of a difference will the MLRS systems make in pushing the Russians out of the Donbas? And if you get the equipment that you described, can you and the Ukrainian forces push the Russians out of the Donbas by Christmas? What's the timeline if you get the list of equipment that you've asked for?
On this moment, I think that the first part of question, it's more question for general staff. They uses the equipment. I'm not sure that I have to answer. And the second question, it's interesting. Normally, my colleagues in media in Ukraine ask me the same question, and my answer is that I forget my tarot cards in my home, and I cannot make forecast definitely what month will be when we will kick them out. But I hope, and it's absolutely a realistic plan to do it on this year.
There's an honest answer right there from a politician. I like that. Front row, we have a hand up. Another question. Can we get a microphone coming on your left side, your right side, sorry. Again, stand up, introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. Niklas Novaki from the Wilfried Martens Center for European Studies in Brussels. A quick question to Minister Reznikov, if I may. The European Union has also agreed a €1 billion assistance package, like via the European Peace Facility, to help Ukraine acquire lethal arms and other equipment. How much of this assistance has Ukraine already acquired, and what sort of capabilities and equipment has Ukraine acquired via the European Peace Facility funds? Thank you, and Slava Ukraina.
As I know, on this moment, this fund make payment not directly to Ukraine or not directly to the warehouse for equipment. This money go to the country, which help us, and country is attendant for this payment. So I cannot to explain you how many euros or dollars went to the Bulgaria or to the Slovakia or to the Poland or to the France. It's a bilateral connection between countries and Mr. Borrell office.
May I just in connection?
Yes, please.
European peace facility is a good thing. Obviously, it's not 1 billion, it's 2 billion now. The problem is with timing. 2 billion is obviously interesting amount for Ukraine if we can help them. And we are, as Oleksii correctly said, if we are to help Ukraine with equipment, then we can ask for reimbursement, countries, European Union members, from the European Peace Facility. The problem is that we claim that we have 2 billion euros for help, but as a matter of fact, countries would receive only some percentage of it this year, but majority may be up to 27. So we politically claim, and sorry for being, I'm well known for being honest. So if we claim that we would like to help Ukrainians with 2 billion euros, then we should have 2 billion euros ready. And not to say that, okay, countries, you from the eastern flank, you are ready to help Ukrainians immediately, so send your equipment as soon as possible to Ukraine. And then we'll give you a 20% this year and maybe some part until 2027. Well, should I reply to Oleksii when he calls me that he needs help now? That, okay, Oleksii, I give you 25% this year, and I will split the rest until 2027. Well, this is not normal, right? I mean, 2 billion euros is enough money to help Ukrainians, but it's not a huge money for European Union not to cope with. So I would urge my dear friends, ministers of finance and European Commission representatives to reconsider this, because if we want to help immediately, and if we are going to empty our storages, then we need to have reimbursement so we can again acquire new equipment and ammunition, so we keep the eastern flank of NATO and EU strong and safe. That's reality.
Am I added a little bit? I think that probably good solution could be appointed the trust fund in Europe. Some countries want to invest money, like Luxembourg, but they cannot do it because they have no any equipment to deliver it, to convey to Ukraine. But they can use this money. Maybe trust fund will be next step of this project.
Thank you, gentlemen. I said I'd bring back into the cyber angle. One of our questions from the audience has asked you all to address that, and asks, have you experienced Russian cyber attacks? I'm going to assume the answer to that is yes. What I'm more interested in is this week, America's top cyber commander, General Nakasone, said in an interview that the narrative in the media that Russian cyber attacks have not been as good or as damaging as was feared or expected is not accurate. That if you ask the Ukrainians about Russian cyber attacks, they'll tell you that they've been quite effective in some places. What can you say publicly that can shed some light for us on what kinds of Russian capabilities you've seen either in your own countries or in Ukraine, and how Western countries are fighting back?
Yeah, I think the cyber warfare has been always part of the overall hybrid warfare, and I think that this is really something on which that we have to concentrate our efforts, because at the end of the day, that's how actually the war in Ukraine started, with a cyber attack on their actually financial system. And in this context, there is no secret that NATO has declared actually cyberspace as an operational domain, together with space, of course, apart from the three traditional domains. And we are in Bulgaria. We have also witnessed this kind of attacks already after not only after, but also before the war in Ukraine. And this is part of these activities below the Article 5 threshold, thus testing actually our resilience, the resilience of our societies, the resilience of our systems. And this could be really dangerous. There is no even need for a conventional attack on us or on any other state. disruption through the cyberspace can really disrupt the daily life of our societies, the way we are dealing with in our daily life.
Yeah, well, obviously we are under attack like every single day, and we know that, and we're talking about hundreds of attacks on annual basis that Slovakia has to face from Russia on various institutions, including defense. On the other hand, another important thing is not only cyber, but also electronic warfare. I know that Oleksii would very much appreciate if he receives much more equipment for so-called EW, electronic warfare, that they can use in order to defend against. Sorry for being very military now in language, but so-called A2AD equipment or capability that Russia has. Once talking about increase of capabilities or the quality of capabilities to be provided to Ukraine, electronic warfare should certainly be one of the top priorities. So they can use their other equipment to work well, to defend well. It's a joint thing. If you want to have a good equipment for defense or for attack, then you need to have electronic warfare as well. If you don't have it, you cannot use the full potential of the equipment that you have. And this is extremely important for Ukraine, but also for our countries in order to defend against possible attacks.
Minister Reznikov, what can you tell us about electronic warfare? It's good to bring up. We spent the last couple of weeks talking about artillery and HIMARS and more traditional weapons, but the ability to disrupt Russian offensive attacks, especially air attacks, we've heard has been extremely helpful to your defense. What can you tell us?
I would like to add it also to my colleagues about the cyber issue, that it was a good decision of NATO countries when we joined to the Cyber Defense Center of Excellence in Tallinn, in Estonia. As you know, before, unfortunately, Hungary used the veto right to block it this moment, but after that they refused to use this veto right, and Ukraine joined to this Center of Excellence. And I think it will be good cooperation between countries. And continuing the question about the EW, electronic warfare, also we trying to get more equipment for jamming Russians' UAVs. And also we need our UAVs for reconnaissance to strengthen our artillery cruises. It's a war in the sky between UAVs so we call it ICE. So we need to blind them, and we need ICE for us, for our artillery, for counter-battery fighting. And sure, we need special missiles, anti-RLS missiles to blind them. And after that, we can use our aviation. So it's a really, as Jaroslav mentioned, very important part of our needs in our wish list.
We're under 8 minutes to go and getting to the final question. So again, to the audience, if you have one, please raise your hand before the end. I wanted to ask all three of you, you are ministers, you are politicians, you represent people, and I wonder if you can talk some about how the conduct of Russia's military has affected public opinion for the conflict, for providing support for the conflict. And I say this because British Defense Minister Ben Wallace was in Washington, and he's been making it a point in his speeches to really condemn not just the Russian military leadership, but the actual soldiers themselves as the war continues, mainly for what he's saying is the dereliction of duty, that the profession of arms has broken down in the Russian military. That's why you're seeing looting, war crimes, a lack of professionalism that's expected, or at least which translates to a lack of capabilities that was feared, which has not been seen, at least in this conflict, on this battlefield. How has, as as men of arms yourselves, how has Russia's conduct affected your assumptions and your analysis of their capabilities, and how has it reached your public, and how does it play into either their fears or their confidence for what they face from the Russian forces?
Cool.
Yeah, it's a good question, but I'm still continue to say that I'm not politician. I'm still a lawyer. It's my professional background. So, and for me, it's very important that our position of our population, for example, for legalizing of weapon in Ukraine. We finished the public search poll, and we have 60% of population that will vote for short gun for self-defense, and 20% for using the short gun and other kind of gun for special needs. So 80% of population for legalization of weapon. Before this invasion, it was absolutely impossible. Also, we had a lot of pro-Russian part of population, especially in the south and east of part of Ukraine. And after then, Kremlin starting bombing the civil facilities, hospitals, kindergartens, schools, I know that on this moment probably 98% are against Russia, population of Ukraine. So for pro-Russian political parties, there are no any chance to be re-elected in Ukrainian parliament or be re-elected in city councils, to be mayors of our villages, of the cities, because Russians show them to the whole world that they are looters, rapers, and murderers. This is not regularly civilized army in the world. So this is not the second army in the world. It's murderers, rapers, looters. We call them orcs.
Mr. Zakov?
Yeah, in Bulgaria, actually, at the beginning of the war, actually, the war has stretched the public opinion in Bulgaria to the two extremities, and this was really a division within the society. Now, 3 months later, 100 days later, actually, I see that there is a bit more balance in the public opinion already. But what is important now is to work with our public to explain that the figures are very, very interesting in Bulgaria, but I think it's not that much difference in Slovakia. We have, according to the latest figures, around half of our population not blaming directly Putin for the war, but at the same time, we have the support for NATO at the highest level historically. Also, there is a big part of the population that is fearing Putin, and that's why they're not against Putin. And this is something that we can work on, because we are part of NATO, we are part of the European Union. We are trying to explain to our population that they shouldn't be afraid, because we are part of this democratic society, and we are well protected. We are part of NATO, and we have even NATO allies on the Bulgarian territory as part of the battle group, part of enhanced air policing. So we have our allies behind us, and we shouldn't be afraid. So I think this is also a big question. Public opinion cannot be changed, but can be shaped.
Yeah, the situation in Slovakia is very similar to Bulgarian one. As a matter of fact, we have now 72%, I think, of support to NATO membership, which is the highest figure ever since we joined NATO in 2004 and even before. So the situation changed, but it changed not only among population, also with the enhanced forward presence. NATO battle group in Slovakia now approved almost or up to 3,000 soldiers to be deployed in Slovakia rather soon, and currently having more than 1,000. But the situation changed also in the rhetoric of political parties. And now I can tell you that it looks like we should reach 2% of GDP for defense this year. And I think it will even rise for the next years to come. I see that there is a will for modernization of the armed forces. We're on a good track. The discussion is very rational. also in the government, but also in the whole parliament. So obviously, defense became one of the top priorities. We are on the eastern flank. We all were able to see what Putin is capable to do, and that really whatever option, even the worst one, is on the table. And I believe that this opened eyes of many of Slovaks who simply considered NATO to be a relic of the Cold War and considered Putin to be a strong bone of peace in the world. Situation has changed. People react in a different, for me, more positive way. And if with all the bad things that the war in Ukraine brought to our lives and to lives of Ukrainians, there is at least something positive, and that is a clear signal from many of our peoples in our countries that, as a matter of fact, NATO is important, EU is important, cooperation in defense is important, and the West means democracy, freedom, and peace, not Russia or similar regimes.
Gentlemen, our final minute, final reaction, if I can get from you in 2 sentences or less, what is your message to the world who is seeing these headlines today about Ukraine fatigue?
No fatigue possible, more help needed, fast approach, very much appreciated. Sooner and with larger capabilities and amounts we help Ukraine, sooner we'll bring peace to Ukrainian people and to Eastern Europe. This is extremely important, and we should not be in fatigue. We should even try to drink additional energy drink so we help more.
Energy drinks, good. Minister Zakov.
I think no fatigue, the same, definitely unity, solidarity, and finally values we win over tyranny.
Finally, Minister Reznikov.
I would think that fatigue could be, because it's nature psychology law. It's psychological. If you will check the CNN, BBC, and other international channels, you will see that on the starting of this invasion, Ukraine was on the top of news level. After that, Texas strategy put Ukrainian down, and on this moment, Texas strategy is not on the top in the CNN, BBC, and other world TV shows. But Ukraine didn't come back to the top. So it's psychological effect. And so, but we need to fight with these options, with the fatigue, and keeping them on a level of attention of all people, all countries, all government, because invasion still continue. Russia still conducting their aggression in trying to occupy whole territory of Ukraine, because it's a dream in the head of Kremlin that they will empire gathering lands, because next one will be Poland, Baltic countries, Slovakia, etc., and we need to stop them, to deter them and kick them out.
Ministers Nad, Zakov, Reznikov, thank you very much for your time and for speaking to our conference and to our publics today. We all greatly appreciate it. Reminder that the next session will start right away and is led by Andrew Muller. It begins with a short video. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank our ministers.